All right, so let's talk about the ship doctor right here. Here's our man right here. This little bundle of adorable. This is Tony Chopper. Now Chopper serves the job of the ship doctor, believe it or not. Now you're probably wondering, well, what the hell is Chopper? Well, Chopper is a reindeer, all right? Now, Chopper used to be an ordinary reindeer living on the island of Drum Island. Um, Now, Chopper, he looks the way he does and is able to talk and everything because he ate the Hito no Mi, or the human fruit, which is the human equivalent of a zone fruit. Now, quick reminder, most zone fruits allow their users to transform either fully into an animal, revert back to their human form, or transform into a hybrid form. So, with the dog fruit model wolf, its user was able to transform either fully into a huge wolf, revert back to his human form, or take on a half man, half wolf, basically kind of a wolfman form. Um, so that's how most zone fruits work. Chopper is basically the answer of, well, does a human is there a zone fruit that would let an animal to become a human exist? And obviously, since Chopper is the way he is, yes. The answer is yes. Now, Chopper has so the standard zone fruit devil fruit abilities. He can revert to his true reindeer form, walking on all four legs and everything. This form that he's in is technically his hybrid form. This is the form he spends most of his time in. And then he has a human form, which I kind of wish, I don't think Chopper really does much fighting. I think in this game, I think some of the other characters might pop in and help a little bit, but Chopper not so much. I don't know why, because Chopper is actually pretty interesting when he fights, and I'll get to that in a second. But Chopper's main focus is to be a doctor. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how does a reindeer get to be a doctor? Well, I don't know. Can I? Is it? I can't go into first person. That kind of sucks. Okay, well, that's about the best I can do right there. Don't know how well that's showing up. Relax, Chopper. I'm not going to punch you in the face. Chopper has a blue nose, okay? And he's a reindeer. This reminding you of a certain Christmas song, because it should. Chopper's whole freaking origin story is very much inspired by Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, where Chopper's life was kind of tragic. So you have to understand something about the Straw Hat Crew. Their life stories, they've been put through the ringer at very young ages. So that's one thing they all kind of have in common. Chopper especially, because Chopper's technically the youngest. I'm not sure off the top of my head how old he is, but I know he's definitely younger than Luffy. And Luffy right now in the story is about 19, approaching maybe 20. Because I think when he first started his adventure, and started going around and gathering all the crew and everything, he was 17. Then they had the 2-year time skip. And by the time the crew reunited, Luffy was now 19. And then considering that they've been sailing around for several months since then, and we don't know exactly what time it is and what time of year it is in the One Piece world, but I'd say it's probably a couple of people on the ship's birthdays have probably passed since then. So Luffy is 19, probably close to 20 years old. Chopper is significantly younger than him. I think he's I don't know, he's probably like a preteen, I think. I'm not sure, I'd have to look it up. But anyway, Chopper lived on Drum Island. He was just an ordinary reindeer except for his blue nose, and much like Rudolph, he was very much looked down upon by the rest of his herd because he was different, because he had a blue nose instead of a black nose. So he was made to walk at the back of the pack. He ate last whenever the herd found food. so on and so forth, and that's how Chopper ended up finding the human fruit, and then he ate it, and then it caused him to transform and become the way he is now, or at least an early version of that. And then the whole pack, you know, his basically his family, they just abandoned him because now they saw him as a mutant freak. Well, then Chopper tried to, you know, use his human form to integrate into human society, but even though he can take on a very human-esque appearance, there's still parts of him that more resemble an animal, so you can't make that transition all the way. It's not like with like regular zone fruits where the user could, you know, change fully into an animal form like a wolf, a leopard, a freaking hyena if you want. And take on that appearance fully, but then revert back to human, and there's no, you know, sign of any kind of animalistic qualities to them. The human fruit doesn't really work that way for Chopper. He still, no matter what form he's in, he still retains at least some of his animalistic features, which makes him clearly not human. So he was shunned by the humans because they thought he was some kind of monster. He eventually meets Dr. Hairluck. And Dr. Hairluck, you know, thinks what he is a riot. He thinks it's funny. And he's the only person to, like, not friggin' run away from Chopper. And they end up becoming good friends. Well, Dr. Hairluck eventually dies. And then an older woman named Dr. Kureha, or Doctorine, as Chopper calls her. At least in the English dub he does. In the English dub of the anime he does. I'm not sure if he says that in the Japanese one or not, but he calls her Doctorine. And I think between Hairluck and Doctorine, they teach him everything he knows about medicine. So he was very much the apprentice slash nurse to both of them. And then once Luffy and the gang show up and they go through the whole thing of Sanji was badly injured and Nami, who's over there behind that tree, was sick. So Doctorine and Chopper ended up treating them, and then Chopper and Doctorine had set up shop in a castle that was owned by a guy named Wapol, who was the major villain for the Drum Island story arc. So they end up beating him, and so on and so forth, and then Luffy convinces Chopper to join the crew. And Chopper's dream is to basically become the world's best doctor. To, you know how to fix everything, know how to cure everything, know how to cure every disease, treat every ailment, to become the best doctor in the world. That's Chopper's dream. Now so that's basically why he joins the crew. Now, Chopper, like I said, we get into his powers. Chopper has, like, the standard 3 transformations. Like I said, he can revert to his full reindeer form. He can take on this form, and he can take on a human form. Now, Chopper's forms, he calls points. Okay? He calls them all points. So his full reindeer form is called Walk Point, or Walking Point. The form that he's in right now, his little cutesy form, his little hybrid cutesy form, is called Brain Point, which I think is, like, he's, like, it does something to it. Like, I don't think he loses or gains intelligence in between forms, but I don't know, maybe it's just something about this form. Maybe it's because he has a big freaking head in this form that makes him maybe look smarter because he has such a big head. I don't know, but this form's called Brain Point. And the only ability he really has in Brain Point, his Walk Point has the standard things you would think of for a reindeer. You know, speed. He can, headbutt the crap out of you with his antlers. I think he's more agile in that form, which I've never seen reindeer or regular deer, for that matter, jump. I've seen them kind of like bounce as they run a little bit, but I've never seen them actually jump. But I wouldn't doubt they could jump pretty freaking far if they wanted to. So that's the advantages with Walking Point. Brain Point, the only ability he really has or has ever shown is called Scope, and basically Chopper takes those little hooves of his and lines them up so that they form kind of like a kind of like diamond-shaped scope in his hands. And somehow through that he's able to scan people and like learn what kind of injuries they have and everything like that. So that's the ability he has with that, and then his full human form is called Heavy Point, where he gains significant muscle mass, so he's much stronger, physically stronger in that form. He's nowhere near as powerful as some of the other heavy hitters in the crew, but I'd say when he's in his muscle form, he's definitely stronger than, you know, physically speaking, he's stronger than Nami, he's stronger than Robin, he's stronger than Usopp. You know, he's stronger than, you know, some of them. I think Frankie, at least as he is now, because this is his, you know, after the time skip upgraded form. So, you know, I kind of would like to see Chopper and Heavy Point just have like a fist fight with Brooke, or not Brooke, but with Frankie. Like not like they, you know, they become enemies and they fight each other. Just like, you know, a sparring match. Like, you know, both of us need to get stronger, Frankie. So you and I are gonna spar, and then, you know, Chopper turns into his Heavy Point, and they just kind of like, you know, trade punches back and forth. I think Chopper could learn boxing. I really do. I think he should. But you know, he is much stronger in that form, and he uses just that sheer brute force to be able to attack. Like his big kind of haymaker punch is called Heavy Gong, so on and so forth. But then because Chopper is a doctor, he knows a lot about medicine, a lot about biology and whatnot, so he started screwing around with his own body chemistry. So Chopper invented these little balls, and they're little medicine balls, and they're called Rumble Balls. Now, currently in the story, Chopper only requires eating one Rumble Ball, and it's only for one particular transformation. But in the past, he could consume a Rumble Ball to allow himself to transform into more forms besides his standard 3. And what the Rumble Balls did was like basically kind of screw up his genetic code and allow him to like take on forms that were, you know, far and away different than the normal 3 forms that a zone user would have. So like, he would eat a Rumble Ball in the past, and he would be able to take on one that was called Horn Point. Horn Point basically kind of looked like Chopper's standard, for the most part, it looked like Chopper's standard Walk Point. Only I think he had more human-like arms, and his antlers grew to gigantic proportions. And this allowed him to like dig underground and everything, and of course would do far more damage if he just straight up, you know, headbutted you with his antlers. Then you had Guard Point, which basically looked like Brain Point, but with like a lot more fur, just like poofed out. So he turns his fur into like a big freaking shield, basically in that form. There was, oh, I think it was Arm Point. Yeah, I think it was Arm Point, where he took on an appearance much similar to Heavy Point, but where Heavy Point, the muscle was kind of spread out all over his body, but it did primarily, you know, focus into his chest and arms and whatnot. This one just kind of mostly puts it in his arms, which makes his, you know, his arm muscles grow huge, but his hands stay hooves, so that allows him to do, like, when he's doing, like, you know, high-powered punches in that form, he has like these piercing effect to it because it's adding the, you know, his kind of pointy hooves to it. And then what else was there? There was all of that. There was the standard 3, there was Brain Point, there was Guard Point, there was Heavy Point, Arm Point, Walk Point, and Horn Point, which were pretty much his 6 transformations that he could go through. Now, if he ate one Rumble Ball, then he could kind of like transform into like any one of those 6 forms that he wanted to. But eventually it would wear off, and then he could eat another one, but it had a side effect at that point of the transformations would be a little uncontrollable, to where he would mean to go into, let's say, guard point, and he would end up turning into arm point, or he would mean to go into, oh yeah, jumping point. I forgot about that, jumping point, which, like I said, mostly humanoid appearance, but he keeps the hooved feet that allows him to jump around. So he had 7 transformations originally, and he still does. Technically he has 8, but we'll get to number 8. So he technically has 7 transformations. So, like, you know, he could mean to go into jumping point, but then turn into horn point, you know, so on and so forth. That's if he eats 2 rumble balls within too soon a time frame. You know, like how most medicine tells you, don't take more than this many in this amount of time. You know, like, let this amount of time pass before you take another dosage. That's the same way with the rumble balls. So if he eats a second one too soon, that's the side effects. You know, he loses kind of control over his transformations. But now we get to transformation number 8. Well, I should bring up the fact that in after the time skip, Chopper has replaced, I believe he replaced arm point, because we haven't seen him use arm point again. We've seen him use his standard 3s, walk point, brain point, heavy point. We've seen jump point at least once. We've seen horn point. He's done guard point a couple of times. But we haven't seen arm point. And I think it's because he replaced arm point with a form that looks very similar to brain point, only it's like, it really does look like Chopper put on a whole bunch of weight. Because he looks kind of round and tubby, but in actuality it's all muscle. So it's kind of like in between heavy point and brain point, where he keeps like relatively his brain point size, but kind of gains the muscle strength of heavy point. And this is actually called Kung Fu point. And in this point, friggin' Chopper knows Kung Fu. Like, he never uses it in any other form, just Kung Fu point. And it, like, basically the way his body is made out is like, where in heavy point his muscle mass is mostly relegated to like his chest, shoulders, and arms. You know, like, his legs are actually fairly skinny in comparison. They do bulk up when he transforms, but they're relatively skinny in comparison to like his upper body. This kind of like spreads it out, like, to where he looks tubby, but it's actually all muscle. It's kind of like Kingpin from the Spider-Man / Daredevil comics in Marvel, where he looks fat as all get out, but actually only a very small percentage of his body is actually fat. So that's why he's so, like, deceptively strong. It's because, you know, he might weigh, you know, close to 400 pounds, but only 2% of that 400 pounds is freaking fat. The rest of it is all muscle. Which is kind of the same idea with Chopper. He looks like, you know, he just put on a whole bunch of weight. But in actuality, it's all muscle, and he's very agile, he's very quick, and he hits like a freaking truck. Because he's able to, like, just, like, wipe out whole bunches of dudes just by jumping around. He does make the Bruce Lee noises, too. He's like, wha-cha! 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 When he freaking attacks in Kung Fu point, and it is funny to watch every time. But it's also kind of, like, it's really cool because you get to see Chopper kick ass, you know? Like, Chopper could hold his own in a fight against, like, you know, some of the lower tier enemies. Every time they would fight enemies, he could hold his own in a fight against some lower tier enemies. But, you know, like, I think he needed something like this, because with Heavy Point he could hold his own to an extent, but, you know, fighting some stronger enemies. But I think this giving him agility, strength, and speed all at once, and basically turning him into a reindeer Bruce Lee, this is something he really needed, like, for just pure combat. because while he does use his other forms for combat purposes on occasion, most of the time now, whenever they go into a fight, either he goes into heavy point or he goes into kung fu point. And a lot of times he's using kung fu. So that's pretty. I thought that was pretty cool when it reveals that he can do that now. Also, after the time skip, he has revealed that now he no longer needs to eat the rumble balls to initiate a transformation. Now, whatever Chopper's done to himself, he's modified his genetic code to where he can go into any of his 6 or 7 transformations without the use of a rumble ball. So, like, remember beforehand, he only had the 3 forms he could go into, the standard 3, and then he had to eat a rumble ball to turn into one of his kind of, mutant transformations to gain access to, like, the other 3 or 4 transformations. Now he can go into any of them. He can go from brain point to kung fu point to jump point to guard point to heavy point, horn point, yada yada yada. He can do all of that, just freely. He can turn into any form he wants whenever he wants. The only form he has that he still requires a rumble ball for, and it's something that originally was a side effect that came from eating 3 rumble balls in a short amount of time. That was originally the thing. Like, whenever Chopper got into a serious scrape, either in the anime or in a movie or in the manga, if Chopper got into a serious situation and nothing else he was trying was working, none of his other forms have it. This is the one thing. It's his trump card. And like, people kind of dreaded seeing it because it was such a beast. It was called Monster Point. When Chopper ate 3 rumble balls in quick succession, in a short amount of time, or if he just ate if he knew what would happen if he ate 3 of them. So if he ate 3 just either all at once or in a short amount of time, his body would undergo a transformation where his powers are just completely out of freaking control. And he would turn gigantic. I mean, he grows to like at least, I'd say, 20 feet tall, and he's just a rampaging beast at this point. He can't distinguish friend from foe. The roar he lets out in this form is so freaking terrifying that anybody that hears it just kind of locks up. He's prodigiously strong. He doesn't seem to feel any pain, or if he does, he doesn't show it. But like I said, it's a problem because, like I said, he can't distinguish friend from foe. At this point, he's literally a mindless giant monster. Yeah, it's hard to believe something that cute and adorable can turn into a huge freaking rampaging monster, right? But he can do it. And basically, the first time we ever saw Chopper do this, Chopper was basically laying there about to eat that last rumble ball, and he's like, "This is my last resort. This is the only option I got left to beat the opponent he was fighting at the time, because everybody was working together to try to save Robin over there, who was about to be executed by the CP9. Chopper was fighting his respective enemy as most everybody else was fighting theirs." Chopper just could not beat this guy no matter what he tried. He could hurt him, but he just couldn't do, enough. So that was his, like, this is my last resort. I gotta take this guy down. I gotta save Robin. I gotta do everything I can to help people. But if I do this, I'm gonna become something that I can't control. I can't stop it or anything like that. And the only way I think for Chopper to be knocked out of Monster Point is if you somehow manage to hit him hard enough to knock him unconscious, which, like I said, considering he doesn't seem to feel pain, would be really difficult to do. Or remember, he's still a Devil Fruit user, so he is weak to being submerged in water. So if you can hit him hard enough to knock him back and knock him into the ocean, that will negate the powers of his Devil Fruit, which will cause him to revert back to normal. And then you can just kind of fish him out of the water before he drowns. So that was what happened when he ate 3 Rumble Balls. Now, it's kind of, the impact of this is kind of taken away after the time skip, because now you find out that the only transformation that Chopper needs to eat a Rumble Ball for is Mal Monster Point. He can just freely go into Monster Point just by eating a single Rumble Ball. And also, he can now control Monster Point. So, you know, now he can just do this whenever he wants, and he's in control. The only time he wasn't in control was when him and Frankie had their bodies swapped, and Frankie decided to go Monster Point, because Frankie actually saw Chopper in his Monster Point form, and it was Frankie that had to knock Chopper into the water to negate his powers there in his lobby. So it's kind of like coming full circle back to that of, okay, now it's the shoes on the other foot, basically. And it kind of takes it away of, you know, like, that was scary to see that happen with Chopper. Your sweet little innocent Chopper turns into this gigantic rampaging beast that will decimate his friends and foes alike, you know? Like, when he came across Frankie, he straight tried to freaking just massacre Frankie. You know, Frankie was a friend, was an ally, so he would have just tore the whole place apart if Frankie hadn't managed to stop him. But now it's like, okay, now it's still, you know, pretty freaking strong. But now he can do this whenever he wants. He can actually talk instead of just like making mindless, you know, noises and roars. So you took kind of the scariness out of it. It's still strong, but like now it has a time limit of, oh yeah, I can go into this form whenever I want, but it has a time limit now of like 3 minutes, which makes me wonder though, what if Chopper gets into a desperate situation again where he has to keep using Monster Point? Like his enemy is like the enemy he ends up fighting, or maybe he fights a series of enemies that are so strong that he has to like keep using Monster Point. And like maybe it's like, okay, I have a 3-minute time limit every time I go into Monster Point, like, and then I revert back to my regular self. Like, what happens though if he uses Monster Point too many times? Like, maybe there's a new Monster Point, like where now the old Monster Point is controllable. Maybe deep down inside this cute little ball of fluff, there's a whole new level of beast. You know, like Monster Point was the darkness inside Chopper, and now that Chopper's, you know, trained and whatnot, he now controls that darkness. But maybe there's some more darkness, some deeper darkness, some stronger darkness inside of little Chopper. That, okay, now he controls the surface level darkness, which is the original Monster Point. But maybe there's something deeper, something more primal, something more beastly, more monstrous. You know, like a super Monster Point. Like, if Chopper has to use Monster Point too many times, then this happens, you know? That's something I would like to see. I think that would be interesting. Now, out of all the people on the Thousand Sunny here who have Devil Fruit abilities, Luffy included, Chopper is the only Zone Fruit user. He's also the only one whose Devil Fruit currently has a mythical zone variant, which, once again, like I said, there are several varieties of zone fruits. I don't make the distinction that a lot of people do of, oh, carnivorous zones. Like, I don't think carnivorous zones are necessarily like just a wholly different freaking thing. I think it's just that they're based on carnivorous animals. So, you know, a wolf, a leopard, you know, whatever, like, even like a T-Rex, which a character possesses in the freaking one of the characters possesses an ancient zone that lets him turn into something that looks like a T-Rex. So, you know, they were all meat eaters, you know, so basically anything that's kind of a meat eater, anything that hunts other creatures for prey, you know, would be considered a carnivorous zone. So that's just kind of like just establishing, okay, well then, if there are carnivorous zones, are there herbivorous zones? You know, just like, oh, you turn into this, and You know, like that's a plant eater in. It's an herbivore in the animal kingdom. So like if you get around plants, then you become really hungry or something. I don't know, but carnivorous zones are said to be more bloodthirsty than others. But the two real main variants of zone fruits are ancient zones, which lets you turn into ancient animals. Like I said, there's one that lets a guy turn into a T-Rex. There's another that let a guy turn into a big woolly mammoth. So ancient zones, basically anything that's extinct, currently extinct. And then the other one is mythical zones. We've only seen a handful of mythical zones so far. You can pretty much count them all on one hand, actually. But one of them what we've seen is the mythical version of the human fruit. So Chopper's fruit does have a mythical version. I wouldn't doubt it has like an ancient zone one too. Like maybe you eat it and you become a Neanderthal or a Cro-Magnon or something like that. I would like to see an ancient zone. Like, it didn't have to be a human fruit. You could make it be a primate or something and be the Gigantopithecus, which was basically King Kong before there was King Kong. I think that would be really cool. Be able to turn into a Gigantopithecus. That would be cool. You're basically King Kong at that point. But anyway, Chopper's, the mythical variant of Chopper's fruit is called the human fruit Model Daibutsu. And its user is, Daifuku, who is, was kind of the head admiral of the Marines at the time. He's since, moved on. He no longer has that position, after the Battle of Marineford. But what his let him do was it let him basically turn into a giant gold Buddha. He still kept his big, luscious afro hair, but he basically grew to the size of like a huge golden statue. And as mythical zones, not only do they allow you transformations, but they also grant you like where regular zones would grant you like the abilities of whatever you're turning into. Like if it's an animal with a really good sense of smell, you would have an enhanced sense of smell. If it has really good eyesight, you have enhanced eyesight, so and so forth. The mythical zones actually give you like special powers. So for the basically model Buddha of the human fruit, it lets you create shock waves. Like Daifuku could, not only is he enormous in size after he undergoes the transformation using his powers, but he can also create like just shock waves through the air with his powers. Like they radiate out as like this energy through the air, and it's like a powerful shock wave. We don't get to see a whole lot of that being used. It's mostly just used for the sheer magnitude of size, with the so for strength plus the shock waves. That's all we really see Daifuku ever do with it. We don't know how far did those powers extend, because we haven't really seen him use it that much. But that is like of note. Chopper's fruit is one of the ones that is confirmed to have a mythical variety. Another one is the bird fruit, has the model Phoenix, which was eaten by Marco of the Whitebeard Pirates. So it lets him turn into a phoenix that in the anime has blue fire covering its body, and its special ability is like the Flames of Rebirth, which basically is like the ultimate healing technique. Unfortunately, it only seems to work for Marco. But basically, like as soon as he's hit with something, a bullet, a knife, whatever, he's just like automatically healing the damage, so it's almost like it didn't happen. Like it just phased right through him. And then there's one chick that is currently a member of Blackbeard's pirate crew. Her name is Katarina Davon. She has a legendary, or a mythical zone fruit, which I really just want to talk about her in like a separate video. Maybe I'll talk about her like when I'll throw her in with somebody else, because just her backstory is really jacked up. I remember when I talked about Impel Down. Or have I talked about Impel Down yet? I don't think I have. Well, basically, Impel Down is like a prison, and it has 6 floors, okay? And the worst scum of the world, okay, are on the 6th floor. and it's under the ocean. Okay, so like top floor is on like top of the ocean. It's kind of like a little island basically, and then you go down and you go further and further to where the sixth floor is on the ocean floor. So it's as far down as you can be, and without being underground. And that's like where the worst scum of the world is kept, is in level 6. And Katarina Devon was one of the people that was kept in there. And she was kept in there for a damn good reason. But her mythical devil fruit is the Dog Fruit model nine-tailed fox. Which grants her not only the ability to shapeshift into a nine-tailed fox from Japanese mythology, but because nine-tailed foxes, kitsune, which were mythical foxes in Japanese mythology, they had various magical powers. Well, the more tails they had, the more powerful their magic was. And when they got up to 9 tails, they were basically gods, which makes Katarina a little more scary. But like one thing that they had was the ability to use their magic to shapeshift, to like disguise themselves as like they could turn into anything, even turn into people, and you would never know. And that's what Katarina Devon uses her ability for. She can transform and make herself look like anybody. Which there are other devil fruits that let you do that, let you have an effect like that, but that goes along with her being a nine-tailed fox. But I'll talk about her later. I'll throw her in with a video somewhere at some other time, because I just want to talk about how messed up this woman is. But that's Chopper. That's his ability. He ate the human fruit. He is one of the few members of the Straw Hats that's not human. Jinbei, who recently joined, he's not human. He's a fishman. Which, yes, fishmen and mermaids, so basically creature from the Black Lagoon and mermaids like Ariel just freaking exist in the One Piece world. So Chopper's now not the only non-human. There's now technically 2 of them, and if Carrot, who is a rabbit girl from a race of people called Minks, if she joins, then there'll be 3 non-humans. Because even though Brook up there is skeleton, he's still technically human, or he was. But I have to talk about Brook's. Brook's fruit is interesting, but I want to talk next about lovely Robin. Later, Chopper.